Hello, and thank you for joining me for some practical dog longevity tips that I think every pet parent can use to help our pets die young as late as possible. My name is Dr. Heather Oxford, and I am a certified rehabilitation veterinarian as well as a veterinary acupuncturist and Diplomate of the American Board of Anti-Aging Health Practitioners. So, my main goal for my patients is to help them live long but also really well. I want my pets living their best lives, and I want to try to maximize their health span, and that is the number of years they live free from disease or disability. So, it may not mean much if our pets make it to 15 or 16 if the last 1 to 2 years of their lives they're spent, in a state of disability or some form of chronic disease. What I really want for myself and my pets and my patients is for their health span to match up as closely as possible to their lifespan so that they don't spend much time at all in any kind of state of suffering. And so this graph just, basically depicts that. What we have currently is we've got pets that kind of are they're descending down this curve out of good health and into fair health by the time they're mature adults. And by the time they're seniors and really getting aged, they're already in poor health. And what we want to do is increase that health span so that they can maintain in good health all the way up to a very aged life. So maybe by the time their different breeds are, have different lifespans, but by the time they're, say, 13, 14, they're still in good health, and then they experience, this kind of decline into poor health very rapidly, but they don't experience a protracted length of any kind of suffering. And so veterinary geroscience has really exploded in the past few years, and human geroscientists have actually started looking at dogs over really any other species to help study how humans age. And the reason dogs are so appropriate for studying is because they do experience a faster rate of aging and shorter lifespan than us. They've got low genetic diversity within each breed, so differences that we see in lifespans and health spans can really be fine-tuned to look at, what are those lifestyle factors and those epigenetic exposures. So that's really helpful, and they share a lot of the same lifestyle factors and exposures that we do. I mean, they're in our homes, sometimes eating the same foods we do, experiencing the same, chemical cleaners and things out in the yard that we are. And companion dogs receive a very similar standard of health care to us too, in terms of the diagnostics and therapeutics that are available to them. And the top chronic non-infectious diseases that affect us also affect them. And those include cancer and cardiovascular disease, endocrine disease, and musculoskeletal and neurological conditions. And so the geroscientists have identified 12 hallmarks of aging. And so these are present in all aging systems. And we know that the 12 of these are driving aging. And as time goes on, we starting at the base here. These are mostly intracellular indicators of dysfunction. And those are going to develop into cellular indicators of dysfunction, organ dysfunction, indicators of systemic dysfunction, and then all the way up to dysfunction of the entire organism throughout time. And so down here at the bottom, all of these intracellular indicators, these are really good places where we can start to try to slow down the whole process of aging. And so we really started looking at these 12 hallmarks of aging as targets for interventions. So targets for ways that we can actually slow down each of these so that the whole organism ages better and slower. So I like to look at these interventions as two tiers. So tier one is what you have to nail down first and foremost, or else you really won't get anywhere with tier two. So tier one is the environmental and lifestyle factors that have to serve as a foundation. And then tier two is when we can start supplementing with nutraceuticals and pharmaceuticals. But the basics are the environmental and lifestyle factors, and these are the best, most easy ways that pet parents can positively impact our pet's aging. And so the number one lifestyle factor is diet. And diet is twofold. So there's quality and also quantity. And so you need both of these to actually be providing a really pro-longevity diet. So we'll get into that now. So quality is when we're using real and whole foods versus crap foods, which are calorically dense, refined, and processed. And the difference being whole foods are very nutrient dense and low in salt and sugar and high in fiber, whereas crap foods are basically the opposite of that. And they also contain a lot of fillers and preservatives, things that have been known to be carcinogenic and associated with morbidity and mortality in human studies. And in a human meta-analysis, 37 out of 43 studies found that dietary ultra-processed food exposure was associated with at least one adverse health outcome, and there was not one positive health outcome associated with ultra-processed food exposure. So what we are looking for good quality nutrients is a diet that's high in antioxidants, fatty acids, and fiber. And those are going to provide us with all of these benefits for longevity. And then the unwanted macronutrients are really carbohydrate-rich diets, which it's tricky. Pet food labels do not have to tell us how many carbs are in the product, so it's actually something that we have to calculate. And the problem with carbohydrate-rich diets is that they add to our glycemic load or index, and that drives inflammation up and metabolic dysfunction, and it can cause microbiome imbalance. The other factor in quality is providing a robust and varied balanced diet. So I don't think any one of us would want to eat the same thing day in and day out, every single meal. And we need to think the same way for our pets. So by providing variety to the diet, we're actually going to introduce, a more robust variety of foods into that pet's microbiome, and that's going to help the microbiome maintain a healthier balance of microorganisms. It's important because that microbiome is the only thing standing between the external environment and the food we eat and our gastrointestinal tract and our cells. So we need to maintain a healthy microbiome. And by doing that, we're going to be maintaining our metabolic processes better. It's going to provide us with anti-inflammatory results, and it modulates the immune system and nervous system. It impacts behavior, cognition, and mood. And so it's really important to try to balance all of that out. And what I tell my pet parents is just start by questioning the food labels. Look at the ingredients yourself. Don't trust what the front of the bag says about how many vets recommend it. Look at the ingredient list yourself. If the whole top line looks like substandard ingredients, chances are that the food is substandard. So we need to be looking for a balanced product that has an AAFCO statement on the bag somewhere or on its website. And we really want to start choosing real and whole food options. This can be like lightly cooked or even raw, fermented foods, which are great. And then just start rotating different varieties in. And we can rotate daily or we can rotate quarterly. It really just depends on the stomach sensitivity of your pet. And you can work with your vet to slowly transition to new foods. I have a list of my top recommended foods on my website that you're welcome to go to and visit. And then for pet parents that I know some people just really want to cook at home, and it's fine to do that as long as you balance the food. And you have to use a trusted resource to do that, either a veterinary nutritionist or use a good website such as Balance It. But it has to be balanced, or you could actually be doing harm to your pet by cooking at home. And the other aspect of good diet is the quantity. So food is not love and less is more. And so we can feed less in two ways. We could either do it by caloric restriction, reducing the amount of calories by 25%. And that's really good for if you have a pet that already has some metabolic dysfunction or is overweight. That's a really good option to start off with. Intermittent fasting is another way to go. And this is not limiting the calories, but just limiting the hours of the feeding time. So just limiting eating to like a 6 to 10 hour window throughout a 24-hour cycle is really good at preventing mitochondrial dysfunction and improving macroautophagy, which is like basically cleaning out the cells and removing cellular waste. So one really good research study we have supporting caloric restriction is a 20-year study involving 7 litters of lab puppies. And they took 48 same gender and same weight litter mates, and they would feed one of those pairs a control-fed diet, and they would feed the other one a calorie-restricted diet, but the same food, the same food type for each puppy. The only thing that differed were the amount of calories. And what they found at the end of 20 years of following these puppies is that the calorie-restricted pups experienced 1.8 years longer lifespan and delayed onset of aging-related diseases like osteoarthritis compared to their control-fed litter mates, which was really, really interesting that the only thing that differed was the amount of calories. So less is definitely more when it comes to longevity. And then Dog Aging Project did some fasting research looking retrospectively at their database of dogs, and they found that once daily feeding resulted in improved preservation of cognitive function in over 10,000 dogs, and once daily feeding reduced the risk of so many different diseases and health conditions in more than 24,000 dogs. So not even restricting the calories, just restricting the amount of time that the pet was able to eat throughout the day is so important in improving health span and lifespan. And then number 2 for lifestyle factors is exercise. And this, we know that exercise prevents cognitive decline in people and dogs. And that's why it's really great that, you get out and you walk your dog and you're benefiting both of your cognitive health. But also interactions between dog housemates and lifelong training exercises with our dogs maintains cognition into old age. And the Dog Aging Project also showed that dogs with the least amount of physical activity had the worst baseline scores for severity of cognitive dysfunction, and they had worse symptom worsening over a 6-month interval, and the worst outcome of clinical canine cognitive dysfunction. Physical activity was significantly and positively related to cognitive function scores among more than 11,000 dogs of older age in their database. And so you may be saying, okay, well, I think I exercise my dog every day, but how do I know if I'm doing it the right way? So there are 2 different ways that we need to exercise like within the week. So we've got to do endurance exercises, but we've also got to do strengthening exercises. So first, just to touch on the endurance, that can be walking daily. It could be short or long walks, trotting or jogging, swimming, going on safari's, which are not really, for physical exercise as much as mental exercise. And sometimes I find that it's beneficial for some of my patients to get some supplements first to get them, more comfortable so that they can get back into exercise. You just have to meet your pet wherever they are. And fish oils, joint supplements, including Adequan, can be really helpful and really powerful in making your pet a little more comfortable so that they can get back to exercise. Strength training exercise is the way to really strengthen the type 2 muscle fibers that oftentimes get forgotten. And this really, you really have to start where your pet is in terms of their conditioning level to determine the intensity and frequency of these types of exercises. In rehab, we have lots of tools that we can use to get them shifting into the rear legs, shifting into the front legs, building core strength, building balance. So sometimes we have to start with more basic exercises to get pets more stable before we can let them start to really do exercises that are going to profoundly strengthen them. But things like pulling, like tug of war, and retrieving, and dog on dog play and wrestling, those are all great ways of strength training. Also just sprinting. Some dogs like to sprint, and if they can be in a fenced area and do that safely every day, that's a great way to keep those type 2 muscle fibers active. And a supplement that is helpful in maintaining muscle and helping to grow muscle is Myos, which is a fertilized egg powder. So that's something that I'll recommend to some of my patients. And the third lifestyle factor that's important is circadian rhythm. And this is basic. This is what drives bird migration. This is what regulates the rhythm of gene and protein expression. It's what maintains so many systems in our bodies, and it's the key to health span. We know from laboratory data that animals that have a dysregulated circadian clock do have shortened lifespans. And so cognitive decline contributes to a sleep-wake cycle dysregulation or a circadian clock dysregulation. And this will produce a sundowner syndrome in dogs just like in people, where you tend to sleep more of the day and then you're up at night and you have this nighttime dysphoria. And so if we allow that disturbed sleep-wake cycle to go on, before long, it will start causing cortisol dysregulation, and that is an abnormal response to stress, and that will result in adrenal fatigue and can even advance to Cushing's disease. So if I have a pet who is having some, sleep-wake dysregulation, many times the primary issue will be they've lost their morning time appetite, or they're just panting and having anxiety at night. I'll suggest that 1, the pet parent keeps the pet more active during the day, and 2, sometimes they'll need melatonin at bedtime to help them fall asleep better. So also temperature regulation or thermoregulating can be really helpful in providing a longevity effect. Now, I will just say with the caveat that there are no established safe or effective temperatures or time dosages for pets. So these are to be done in moderation only, so that as to not cause an emergency situation in your pet. But when pets or people are exposed to cold, we spend cellular energy trying to regulate our body temperature. As we age, we're losing brown fat and we're gaining white fat. The problem with that is that white fat secretes inflammatory hormones, and it actually accelerates aging even faster. Brown fat consumes more energy to thermoregulate us, and it reduces the amount of white fat and inflammation that we have. So cold exposure actually reduces and reverses the amount of brown fat loss that we have, and that can help us slow aging. Heat exposure, on the other hand, activates antioxidants and protein repair. So that actually helps us to reduce protein damage in our cells and actually benefits proteostasis, which slows aging. And Heat exposure also increases growth hormone, and that preserves muscle and balances cortisol levels for us. Sex hormones are also very pro-longevity. So this has been talked about more and more in the past few years. And so the main benefit of spaying and neutering your dog is that it protects against mammary cancer. However, leaving them hormonally intact protects against various cancers. And so there's, 3 cancers that we know it protects against versus mammary cancer. Leaving them hormonally intact does increase their risk a little bit of mammary cancer. Spaying and neutering, though, increases the risk of orthopedic, metabolic, endocrine disease, and several other cancers in dogs. And we know that the longer the exposure to estrogen and testosterone, regardless of whether they end up getting neutered, is associated with a reduced likelihood of general health problems. And it's associated with a longer lifespan in dogs. Definitely some evidence for developing individualized plans for population control. And so some surgical options to consider with your vet would be ovary sparing or hysterectomy spay or vasectomy for males. Now, there are also some modalities that can give us good longevity benefits. And being in rehab, I have had a lot of experience with infrared laser. And this is laser light that's absorbed by the mitochondria, and it'll cause the cells to produce 35 to 70% more ATP, which is cellular energy, within 10 minutes of the laser treatment. And it can last for up to 3 to 6 hours in some cell types. So it improves mitochondrial function and cellular clearance and also cognitive protection. It prevents muscle loss, improves cellular signaling, and decreases inflammation. And it also provides an anti-senescence effect and stimulates stem cells. So really cool benefits of doing some infrared laser, as well as improving your pet's mobility. Acupuncture is another modality that can be done by a vet that can be immune balancing and anti-inflammatory. So it can help to balance the 2 arms of the immune system to more effectively combat infections, and also provides more anti-inflammatory effects. So it can actually reverse the migration of neutrophils, which are white cells that are drawn to inflammation, and also increasing the natural killer cell activity, which are the cells that actively seek and destroy cancer cells. And so I did a very deep dive in 2024 and got a research paper published in the Journal of American Holistic Veterinary Medical Association. And I covered the molecules that have evidence of providing longevity effects in companion animals. And you're welcome to go to my Instagram page and download that article if you're so inclined. But the biggest one, in my opinion, that provides a pro-longevity effect is NAD and NAD precursors. So this is a molecule that's produced in and supplies energy for each cell, and it directly stimulates longevity proteins to repair DNA damage. And by doing this, you're helping to regulate insulin, maintain cognitive function, improve mitochondrial function, and decrease inflammation, and also restores muscle. And NAD tends to decrease with age and with inflammation, and too low of a level of NAD and the cells will die, and before long the organism dies. So as we age, we do want to try to supplement the NAD, whether by taking a supplement or by, doing some of those lifestyle factors that I just discussed, like exercise or fasting. But for supplementation, you can take precursors by mouth that do become bioavailable and form NAD within the cell. And one supplement that I love for dogs is leap years. It improves cognition and engagement and mobility in dogs. And it also, in addition to the NAD precursor, it also includes a senolytic or zombie cell killer. So senolytics are these molecules that act as antioxidants and anti-inflammatories in the cell membrane, and it will make a senescent zombie cell visible to the immune system so that it can get removed. Examples of senolytics are fisetin, quercetin, and apigenin. And the leap years made by Animal Bioscience contains both a senolytic and an NAD precursor. So it's a daily chewable that restores cellular health and supports the natural clearance of these zombie cells. And it's been put through a double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial in 65 dogs. It performed very well, and I like to recommend it to any of my middle-aged dogs or dogs that are showing signs of slowing down at any age. And I've been really happy with the results that I've seen in my patients that are on leap years. So in summary, we talked a lot about basically what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. A lot of these lifestyle factors that are pro-longevity, they're just forms of hormesis, which is mild stress on the body for short periods. And that's a good thing. It makes our cells work a little bit harder, which provides us with better health span and in many cases, better lifespan. And so just to summarize, what we want for our pets is a good diet. We want calorie restriction or intermittent fasting, so we want to be a little hungry. That's a good thing. A good daily exercise routine, both strength training and endurance. And so it helps us to be strong, and being out of breath helps us to be healthier. Temperature regulation, it's good to be cold. It's good to be a little hot sometimes. That's going to benefit us long term. We should be talking about individualized spay and neuter plans. So hormones are helpful for longevity. And doing laser and acupuncture, especially for our pets that already are showing some mobility issues, can be really, really beneficial. And some supplements that can help once we've got our tier 1 lifestyle factors in place for us are going to be leap years, fish oils, joint supports, and sometimes melatonin. So those are my pro-longevity tips that I hope you found helpful, and I wish you and your pets very long, happy lives. Thanks. Have a good day.